On the next episode of Behind the Visor, I'm talking to a legendary British Formula 1 driver. David Coulthard entered many Grand Prix for McLaren, Red Bull, and in his earlier years at Williams. I talked about his F1 career, then his later career in DTM, and also some of the fascinating battles he had along the way with Hakkinen and Schumacher in his Formula 1 seasons. I also wanted to understand what he picked up in his early years in karting and the junior championships, and if they stuck with him throughout his whole career. So here we are, the Behind the Visor interview with David Coulthard. Hello everyone, today we are joined by F1 driver and DTM driver David Coulthard. So I was going to start off by talking about your career a little bit. So like most people, you start in go-karts. Was there something that you learned in go-karts that you took through your whole career?
Yeah, I think my whole vision of a racetrack, the way I looked at racing opportunities, the work ethic, the preparation, the teamwork, everything that I learned in karting is what I then applied through my racing career. And I think that if you look at what, whether it's Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, whoever your favourite Formula 1 driver is, they will all talk fondly of their karting days, because for all of us, we were kids, just driven by competitive spirit, and it was uncomplicated by the business of racing, which is obviously there when you get to the Formula 1 level. So I love karting, and I'm too old now to do any kind of racing, but it's a great memory. And I have a 9-year-old, and I take him to the kart track, and I like to just stand and watch him going through his learning process. Awesome.
So when you first stepped into a proper racing car, was there a big challenge that got in your way at first, something you really had to sort of work on?
When I first drove a car, 1988, winter of 88, I didn't like it. It felt weird. I said to my father, I'm quite happy in karting. And he was like, look, son, if you're going to have a career, you really have to move into cars. So I stuck with it. Once you do enough testing, it then becomes normal. And that led to me winning the championship in Formula Ford, and led to joining Paul Stewart Racing, which led to being a test driver at Williams, which led to being a Grand Prix driver, and which all of that journey led me to talking to you today.
So when you won that British Formula 4 title, you also won the McLaren Young Driver Award in the same season. How was it adapting from a Formula 4 to a Formula 1 car? I assume that's one of the biggest jumps you'll ever make.
Yeah, it was quite eye-watering to suddenly feel the power of a Formula 1 car and the size, but it was so well engineered that a lot of the things like the gear shift was actually much smoother than in the lower formulas. But the biggest thing that came out of that test was the realization it was just a car. It had a throttle, brakes, steering. You go as fast or as slow as you want to, and of course as a racer you want to go as fast as possible.
Yeah. So then in your time in F3000 and Formula 3, you did quite a few, I think was it 3 or 4 seasons in that?
Yeah, 3 seasons. Yeah.
How did that prepare you for Formula 1? Because that's sort of a vital part of any career in Formula 1, isn't it?
Yeah, Formula 3000 was like GP2 or F2 as it's called today, was operating on the undercard at Grand Prix, so it got me on European tracks, got me in front of the Formula 1 paddock. I did 2 seasons and 1 race with that championship whilst I was a test driver at Williams. And physically, because the Formula 3000 isn't as fast as a Formula 1 car, but very heavy steering and things like that. So physically, it prepares you for the sort of challenges that come in Formula 1.
So a question that a lot of people that have asked me, they wanted me to ask you this question was: do you look back on a certain race in your F1 career with fond memories?
Yeah, there's several. Winning British Grand Prix was a highlight, of course. 99, 2000, winning in Monaco was important because I was always relatively good in street circuits. I won Macau in Formula 3 and raced at Pau, I think finished second there. So I always felt good in the sort of closed confines of a street track. And I like the historic circuits where the history of the sport was built. And to know that I won in Spa and Monza and places where drivers that I looked up to had won races before gave me a real sense of connection with the sport that I love.
So you raced with some of the greatest ever. Of course, you are one of the greatest ever yourself. Racing with Mika and Michael, how did you have to prepare mentally for that? Because going into every race you knew you were going to get involved with some sort of battle with them, most likely.
Yeah, well, I tried obviously my best in my racing career. I wasn't quite as good as Michael and Mika, or I wasn't nowhere near as good as those guys because they had exceptional consistency of performance. I could deliver a high level performance a few times during the year, but for whatever reason I couldn't sustain that. And it wasn't for a lack of trying. I really looked at every aspect of my physical, mental preparation, but it just didn't. I reached my potential. We all aspire to be the best, but as long as you're being the best version of yourself, I think that you can retire happy.
So moving on to DTM, which is obviously what the event we're talking about here today, how was that changing from Formula 1 to DTM? Because some people might see it as a downgrade, but in a lot of ways touring cars is at the top of the touring categories really, isn't it?
Yeah, I never saw it as a downgrade. In terms of Formula 1, it's the most famous racing championship in the world. It is a true world championship, and it's got the fastest single-seater racing cars. German touring cars, they are the fastest touring cars, but it's largely in Germany, so it's not really widely known, which I think is a shame, because I think the racing is good. I think that there's some interest in the technology, but through either a lack of desire or a lack of promotion, it just hasn't become more worldly in terms of its reach. This event today is to help try and promote the fact that it's coming back to the UK. I think that's significant for a number of reasons. You've got 3 of the major German manufacturers, you've got a number of British drivers that are at the top of the championship and have a real chance of winning, and it's a truly European championship.
So a question maybe a lot of people ask is, what's the main difference between a DTM car and a Formula 1 car? You probably asked it a lot, so I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, well, there are a number of differences. Heavier, less power, less downforce. So everything is downgraded relative to a Formula 1. But in comparison to a Formula 3 or any other form of touring cars, it's better because it's faster and it's more responsive. So I think in many ways it's not making excuses for my DTM career, but I think it's more difficult coming down than it is going up, because when you're going up, everything gets better and you just use that potential. But when you come down, you have to readjust your mind to a lesser level of performance. It's still fast, it's still exciting, but you just can't brake as hard, and the car has more movement and a little bit more difficult to judge. So I think that's why you end up having certain categories that are very driver specific. An extreme version of that would be rally cars, because it's so different from other forms of circuit racing. But DTM, comparison to other touring car races, is faster.
So onto the Brands Hatch, obviously we're going back this year. Did you have a special moment there, something that you will never forget in terms of a Brands Hatch moment?
Yeah, well, I did my Formula Ford career largely around Brands Hatch. Formula Ford Festival was a big race at that time. I was able to finish on the podium there, which was a big deal because I was a junior at that point in my career. Raced there in Opel Lotus, raced there in Formula 3, raced there in DTM. It's just a great track, a lot of history. They had Formula 1 there in the past, they had World Sports Cars there in the past. And it challenges the driver because it's pretty unforgiving.
So my last question was, for any young drivers coming through the ranks right now, what one bit of advice would you give them to try and make a career out of motorsport?
Well, I think life isn't fair, so it doesn't always give opportunity to those that maybe deserve it. But whoever the person is and whatever opportunities they're going to have in their life, they have to assume someone else has the same talent as them. So the thing that will separate them is work ethic, commitment, and the ability to leave no stone unturned. So if any of the young drivers out there think just talent alone is going to give them success, they'll be disappointed. So however hard they train harder. However much time they spend with the team and the engineers, spend more time. However much time they spend out partying and socialising, spend less time. You've just got to be selfish and focus if you want to be the best version of yourself.
Great, thank you. It was a massive honour to meet someone as an incredible driver as David Coulthard, and an even nicer person. And it was a fantastic little interview, and afterwards we had a couple of minutes chatting as well. He even asked how my YouTube channel was going, which is kind of surreal. Like one of my idols growing up asking me how my YouTube channel is going, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, fantastic interview. I really enjoyed that. This is my actually latest interview, so I have got quite a few other interviews to upload, and some of them I definitely am more nervous than others. I think I'm getting there. I'm slowly getting into the routine of doing interviews and just understanding, when to laugh and when not to laugh. I think I did have a bit of a nervous laughter, which sort of was quite obvious. So some of the older ones you'll see that are going to be uploaded over the next couple of weeks. They're all edited now, thanks to my friend Jaws. But yeah, the ones going up over the next couple of weeks, some of them, you'll tell which the older ones are because, yeah, you see me laughing a little bit more awkwardly from time to time. But the idea of this whole event, meeting David Coulthard, was to sort of introduce the Brands Hatches, introducing the DTM back as well. So If you're interested, it's going to be really exciting at the end of August. I'll leave a link in the description. DTM is coming back to Brands Hatch, coming back to the United Kingdom after quite a few years, I think 6 or 7 years since it last raced here, so quite a long time, and it'll be really, really exciting. One of the biggest motorsport events in the country, that's for sure, and one of the coolest cars you'll get to see. And unlike Formula 1, where the drivers sort of pushed away a little bit, the paddock's open, people can sort of go into the paddock and meet the drivers. You get a much easier chance of actually meeting your driver, your favourite driver, meeting them, getting a picture, maybe getting a little autograph. It's just so much more open than Formula 1 in that aspect. But yeah, I definitely advise going. I mean, if it's any incentive, I might be there. Well, I'm definitely going to be there, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be recording a couple of interviews as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Be sure to get down to Brands Hatch for the DTM if you have the chance. It's on the Grand Prix circuit. It's an even bigger track, more chances to overtake, and more places to view from. So it should be a really exciting weekend. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please remember to leave a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Every little bit of support and just any sort of feedback really helps me out. So thanks once again. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys around soon. Goodbye.